They lied to you. They told you your biggest struggle was out there, in the unforgiving market, or perhaps in the relentless cutthroat competition. But the most agonizing truth, the one that grips you in the quiet hours, is this: your cage was not forged by the world. It was built by the accumulated weight of the things you chose to carry. There comes a moment in life, a terrifying and liberating intersection, when you begin to understand something utterly simple yet profoundly life-changing. The colossal, crushing weight you've been dragging through every exhausting day, through every sleepless night, was never really yours to bear. You, tirelessly and tragically, took on every sharp, harsh word, internalized every cold, disapproving glance, and accepted every quiet, subtle dismissal like it was permanently carved into the deepest core of your worth. And now, you stand at the edge of exhaustion, looking round at the landscape of your burdened life and whispering the question that echoes across generations: how much more of this can I hold? But the monumental, life-altering secret you must seize is this: the answer isn't to keep holding it all. No, the path forward is liberation. Real strength doesn't come from carrying everything until you break, but from the brutal, honest wisdom of knowing exactly what to put down. And sometimes that single, crucial act means learning, deliberately and strategically, to stop caring so much. This is not the narrative of a heart that has gone cold. Quite the opposite. This is the fiery, necessary birth of a heart that has finally grown wise. Let that sink in. This journey of mastery is not about the childish pretense that you don't feel the sting of life. It is about feeling fully, deeply, allowing the emotions to pass through you, and then choosing, deliberately and with absolute intention, not to be ruled by those feelings. It is about standing utterly rooted in the center of the storm, not because you are immune or untouched by the wind and the rain, but because you have made a radical, sacred decree to the universe: your peace isn't up for negotiation. You feel it, don't you? You do not need to compulsively leap to respond to every single voice, every passing opinion, or every cheap, manufactured provocation the world throws at you. Some things, in those cinematic moments that demand profound distance, are best left totally unanswered. When you choose to step back, when you act as though you don't care in moments that scream for a space, what you are truly doing is protecting what matters most. You are declaring, without raising your voice, without a single shouted word, "This doesn't define me." And that quiet, powerful refusal to be shaken is precisely where your authentic freedom begins. The heaviest burdens you carry, the ones that make you ache at night, they aren't always the loud, visible ones. Far too often, it's the invisible, insidious pressure to please, to prove, to eternally seek acceptance. You carry the weight of other people's expectations like an invisible pack strapped permanently to your back. Think about that. And over time, that relentless, exhausting emotional labor wears you thin, thinning your spirit like a wire frayed to its breaking point. We confuse detachment with numbness, but they are worlds apart. Detachment isn't numbness. It is clarity. It is the deliberate, necessary act of stepping outside of that constant, dizzying loop of desperately needing to be understood, validated, and admired. When every careless slight cuts deep, you bleed out the vital energy that should be fiercely fueling your own, unique path. But here's the revolution. When you stop absorbing every emotional shockwave and start observing the world instead, you create sacred, internal space. And in that space, the most powerful transformation happens. You begin to breathe again. The core issue is never that you care. The problem is that you have cared so profoundly, for so long, about fleeting things that were never, ever worthy of your precious energy, approval, status, image. None of these empty trophies can give you genuine peace, yet you have surrendered the definition of your value to them. When your sense of worth rises and falls dependent on someone else's unpredictable mood or casual opinion, you have given away the reins. Detachment doesn't just hand them back, it makes you sovereign over your own kingdom. You start to truly grasp the monumental fact that the only voice you must genuinely live with every day is your own. And when that deep, inner voice grows calm and absolutely certain, the chaotic outside world instantly begins to lose its desperate, crippling grip. Let that truth resonate. Think of those individuals you admire, the ones who move through immense conflict without ever losing their true center. They do not fight every single battle presented to them, not because they are weak, but because they have learned, with brutal honesty, which ones truly matter. They've cultivated the masterful ability to stay rooted while everything around them wildly spins. That is the ultimate promise of emotional detachment. It is not an escape from emotion. It is a filter, a necessary pause, a conscious choice. You stop the automatic, frantic reacting to every push and every pull, and instead, you begin to respond with quiet, powerful intention. In that momentary, almost invisible space between what actually happens and how you choose to handle it, there's immense power. You are no longer operating frantically from a place of deep fear or wounded ego. You are choosing directly from a position of pure, grounded strength. Detachment does not demand you shut your heart down. It simply asks you to stop handing it over freely to everyone who reaches for it. You master the difficult skill of holding space for your most intense feelings without ever being swept away by them. Your inherent sensitivity becomes something you brilliantly manage, not something that aggressively manages you. This kind of profound strength doesn't require a heavy, clanking armor made of steel. It is more like tempered glass, strong, clear, flexible, and utterly shatterproof. You begin to ask yourself the ultimate question, quietly, repeatedly, in every situation: is this truly worth my peace? And more often than you ever believed possible, the answer is a firm, unwavering no. You transition from being cynical to being selective, from being guarded to being deeply grounded. When you appear to step back, when you seem like you don't care, what you are truly doing is preserving what is sacred inside you. The difficult truth you must accept is this: caring too much opens the door to being used. When people sense that your identity is hanging precariously on their approval, they gain the power to twist and manipulate that dependence. They can make you doubt everything, lead you down paths that were absolutely never yours to walk. If you are tired of chasing validation, hit the like button now. Detachment breaks that pattern. It teaches you how to draw a quiet, immovable line between what is authentically you and what isn't. You learn when to walk away, when to say no, when to protect your own narrative. You stop living in reaction to everyone else and start living entirely in alignment with yourself. This isn't coldness, this is inner peace. And in the end, you don't lose your heart. You just stop giving it away to those who never, ever earned it. When you stop caring about the fleeting opinions of people who don't support or uplift you, you instantly stop giving them permission to shape your reality. You reclaim your emotional space and your vital energy. And with that, you begin the revolutionary work of rebuilding your sense of power. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's unpredictable mood, temporary approval, or fleeting attention. Instead, you become grounded in something deeper, something permanent, your own sovereign sense of self. This is the true definition of emotional detachment. It's not indifference, and it's certainly not avoidance. It's a conscious, repeated choice to not give your power away to things that do not serve you. It has the quiet strength of knowing that not every opinion deserves a reaction, and not every careless judgment needs to be absorbed into your being. Detachment isn't an overnight magical change. It is a daily, deliberate practice, a mental reset that allows you to stop internalizing every rude comment, every disappointment, every unfair moment. You still feel things that is human, but you no longer carry them with you everywhere you go. You refuse to let someone else's dysfunction or behavior become your heavy burden. That kind of spiritual release takes rigorous discipline and immense courage, especially when every fiber of your instinct tells you to defensively lash out or completely shut down. But the more you practice this way of being, the stronger, deeper, and more foundational your inner peace becomes. You learn that it is simply not your job to hold every single emotion that passes through your space. Not every wave is meant to pull you under. Think about that. When you detach in the right, strategic way, your resilience grows. You stop seeing failure as a crushing personal blow and instead begin to view it as something entirely separate from your identity. Setbacks are no longer proof of inadequacy. They are just part of the grand process. You begin to realize that disappointment is inherently temporary, but your deep, internal calm can be permanent if you fiercely guard it. You start to recognize that your emotional stability is your single most valuable asset, and no one else should ever have the power to shake it without your explicit permission. Caring too much, especially about external things outside your control, will relentlessly drain you. When your self-worth is wrapped around how others fleetingly see you or what external results you achieve, you are constantly chasing something that can be instantly taken away. Detachment helps you shift that power dynamic. You no longer need constant reassurance or validation. You stop tying your core identity to external outcomes or people's fleeting approval. You begin to love yourself in a way that remains rock-steady, regardless of circumstance. The monumental goal, the destination of this clarity, is not to stop feeling, but to stop allowing those powerful, turbulent feelings to seize the wheel and run your entire life. You must begin to care wisely. You must master the profound discernment of knowing precisely when to hold on tight, and when, for the sake of your soul, you must release. That wisdom, that kind of quiet discernment, is the raw, pure core of self-respect. It is the absolute highest level of emotional maturity. Acting like you don't care, in the right, precise context, is never coldness. It is a boundary. It is your silent declaration, thundering through the noise. My energy is sacred. My peace is non-negotiable. Ask yourself, how often do you mistake sacrifice for self-respect? You are drawing this ironclad line not because you are bitter or wounded, but because you have learned that not everyone deserves sacred access to the inner chamber of your heart. You've finally discovered the difference. Emotional availability does not equal devastating vulnerability to those who have not genuinely earned your deep, steady trust. You begin to protect your spirit like a priceless jewel, not out of lingering fear, but out of hard-won wisdom. At the heart of this necessary, transformative emotional detachment is radical self-love. It is the unwavering belief that you deserve to move through the world unburdened by the chaos others desperately try to hand you. That you deserve respect even when no one's watching. That your value is not a commodity tied to performance, perfection, or fleeting popularity. And with that crystalline clarity, everything changes. You become steady. You become that calm, grounded eye in the hurricane of a world that thrives entirely on chaotic reaction. You no longer nervously jump at every sharp comment, every petty rejection, or every unpredictable twist in the road. You move differently now, more deliberately, more peacefully. Your inner peace becomes your home. It is more rare and valuable than wealth, more powerful than external approval, and infinitely more essential than validation. This peace is the silent, deep sanctuary where your mind quiets, your body finally rests, and your soul draws its deepest breath. But the world is relentless, full of a crushing, constant noise. Noise that actively wants to pull you out of your sanctuary, tempting you into conflict, comparison, and doubt. This is precisely why guarding your peace is not a selfish luxury. It is a necessary, sacred act of survival. When your peace is fundamentally compromised, watch closely, everything else begins to unravel. Your clarity dulls, your focus scatters, and your strength drains away when you allow too much corrosive noise in. Think about that. Most people don't even realize how easily they give away their peace. A tiny, careless comment turns into hours of toxic rumination. One negative, fleeting interaction ruins an entire day. Toxic individuals drain their joy and steal their focus. They replay arguments that no longer matter. They drown in hooties and regrets. This mental clutter builds slowly, but it is deeply corrosive. It steals time, drains energy, and clouds your ability to live in the present. But when you finally choose to detach, when you refuse to take on every emotion or reaction as if it were your own heavy cross, something fundamental changes. You stop being frantically pulled in every direction. You stop letting the unpredictable outer world dictatorially decide your precious inner state. And in that space, you begin to reclaim your life, not as a desperate performance for others, but as a quiet, powerful act of self-honor. Protecting your inner peace means refusing, absolutely refusing, to be pulled into cycles that drain you. It is the quiet but firm decision to say no to unnecessary drama and to walk away from anything that aggressively unsettles your spirit without sufficient reason. It's about strategically investing your energy in what uplifts you, not what mercilessly drags you down. This is the genuine start of real power. You cannot possibly protect your peace if you remain ignorant of what fundamentally threatens it. The very first step is awareness. You need to become an emotional detective, learning to recognize the people, the thoughts, the habits, and the situations that consistently shake your balance. Awareness gives you clarity. It is the powerful floodlight that helps you avoid emotional traps, long before you stumble and fall into them. Sometimes the threat is subtle, gossip that clouds your thoughts, news that fuels anxiety, a pattern of comparing yourself to others, or a relationship that constantly drains you. Whatever the specific threat, you must be honest enough to name it, wise enough to fully understand it, and strong enough to keep it at a respectful, necessary distance. Protecting your peace means building boundaries around your emotional and mental space. You are not responsible for fixing other people's chaos, but you are absolutely responsible for guarding your own calm. The world will always bring noise, distractions, and tests. Peace is not about cleverly avoiding conflict. It's about learning the master skill of staying centered in the middle of it. Ask yourself, what noise are you absorbing right now that is not yours? When you choose to protect your peace, you're not escaping reality. You're learning how to meet it with a calm mind and a steady heart. You're learning to respond instead of react. You stay grounded even when everything around you is uncertain. This strength is not luck. It is a skill built deliberately through practice and intention. You train yourself to treat your peace like the sacred thing it is. A key part of that training is the profound relief of learning to let go of what you absolutely cannot control. You cannot control what others say or do, how they feel, or whether they understand you. Trying to furiously manage what is ultimately out of your hands will only exhaust you. The crucial, liberating shift happens when you begin focusing your entire being on what you can control: your thoughts, your reactions, your attitude, and your energy. That's the revolutionary turning point. That is the moment you finally stop carrying burdens that were never designed for you. When you surrender what's outside your control, you open up a massive, beautiful space for clarity, growth, and peace to take deep root. Self-care becomes essential. It is not a luxury item. It is the non-negotiable foundation of your survival. Your mind requires profound rest. Your heart demands careful protection. Your spirit desperately needs moments of quiet. The more you care for yourself, the stronger your peace becomes. This might mean turning down obligations, saying no to people-pleasing, or stepping back from screens. You cannot possibly show up fully for your life if you are perpetually running on an empty emotional tank. Sometimes, protecting that peace means walking away a quiet, brave retreat from draining environments or unhealthy relationships. That decision is a lonely, difficult one. It requires the deep courage to choose your future growth over your current comfort, your healing over your painful history. But remember this fundamental law: peace and chaos cannot coexist. If something repeatedly, actively threatens your calm, it cannot stay in your life. Letting go is not weakness or cruelty. It is the highest act of inner strength and wisdom. You feel the weight lift, don't you? You begin using stillness and mindfulness as tools. When you learn to observe your intense thoughts without immediately passing judgment, you create a necessary space between your true self and your swirling emotions. You stop being tossed round like a small fishing boat by every passing wave. You build an inner refuge, a quiet, unbreakable place inside you that simply refuses to disappear when life gets loud and terrifying. The more frequently you return to that quiet space, the more natural it becomes to live from it. You train your mind to choose calm over chaos, reflection over reaction. You are not just protecting your peace, you are becoming it. This is a lifelong practice. What matters is that you keep choosing to return. Every time you choose your peace, you reinforce your foundation. You grow more rooted, more resilient, more free. You stop living from a place of frantic, exhausting reaction and start living from a place of deep, steady power. When you honor this inner peace, your calm becomes magnetic. Your steadiness inspires others. You no longer feel the need to match the noise around you. You rise above it. You become an example of quiet power. Because real strength is grounded, unwavering, and deeply present. When that deep stillness becomes your non-negotiable way of life, nothing outside you can ever break what you have powerfully built within. That kind of peace is truly unstoppable. Have you ever noticed how many people go through life exhausted, overlooked, and emotionally drained? So often, it's because they haven't learned to set clear boundaries. Boundaries that guard their time, protect their energy, and preserve their peace. Without them, it's easy to get used, stretched too thin, or treated like an afterthought. Setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It's about respecting yourself enough to define what you will and won't allow. Saying no without guilt isn't rude. It's reclaiming your right to decide how your life is lived. When you stop being available for everyone's demands, you stop being their emotional dumping ground or their last-minute solution. Boundaries are the invisible fences that protect your inner world. And when you build them strong, you create a life where your well-being isn't constantly under threat. Too many people are afraid of setting boundaries because they've been taught that it makes them selfish or unkind. They fear disappointing others or being seen as difficult. But the truth is, boundaries are a deep expression of self-love. When you say, "This is my limit," you are not rejecting someone. You're choosing to honor yourself. It's the presence of care for yourself. You cannot continue to give from an empty cup. And every time you let your boundaries be crossed, you deplete your spirit just a little more. Think about that. Learning to set boundaries without apology is about embracing your worth. It's about showing the world how to treat you by first treating yourself with dignity. And yes, once you start setting boundaries, you will face pushback. People who benefited from your silence or self-sacrifice may resist your change. They may question you, guilt you, or even lash out. But this is where your strength has to meet your clarity. Boundaries are not meant to isolate you. They're meant to protect you. They aren't walls that keep love out. They are gates that keep toxicity from flowing in. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need to defend your right to say no. This is your life, your space, your responsibility. The more you stand firm, the more others begin to adjust. And the more you realize how much power you've had all along. And in doing so, you change not only how you live, but how the world responds to you. Boundaries are an act of care. They protect your peace and your relationships. Saying no to what depletes you is saying yes to what restores you. Distancing yourself from negativity isn't cruel. It's necessary. Refusing to accept disrespect isn't aggressive. It's healthy. Boundaries create the framework for genuine connection. Without them, resentment builds. Communication erodes. Chaos grows. But with them, relationships become more honest, respectful, and fulfilling. If this speaks to you, hit subscribe now to keep building this strength. Learning to set boundaries without apology begins with learning to say no with clarity, with kindness, and without guilt. It doesn't require harshness or confrontation. It requires self-respect. Saying no calmly and confidently is a skill that gets easier with time and practice. And each time you do it, you send a message not only to others but to yourself that your time, your energy, and your well-being matter. You break the cycle of people-pleasing and make space for more honest, respectful relationships. When you embrace the strength of silence, you stop wasting your breath on those who don't hear you or won't value what you offer. Quiet confidence becomes your language. It's magnetic because it commands attention through presence alone. Silence also serves as a shield when others try to provoke you, drag you into conflict, or disrupt your peace. Choosing silence is not retreat. It's strategy. Walking away from unnecessary battles isn't weakness. It's clarity. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. This kind of indifference doesn't numb you. It refines you. It creates the mental space your deepest ambitions need to grow. There's power in releasing what doesn't serve you. When you detach from distractions, you reclaim your focus. Your energy becomes centered, directed solely toward your values and goals. Indifference, when rooted in purpose, becomes a boundary, a filter, a force field. It's the choice to care intentionally, to pour your energy only into what fuels growth, and to let everything else fall away. You aren't indifferent because you don't care. You're indifferent because you care enough to protect your energy from exhaustion and chaos. Focus requires discipline. It demands emotional clarity and the courage to ignore distractions. If you react to every slight, every criticism, every passing conflict, you scatter your energy and weaken your resolve. But when you wield indifference with purpose, your fire doesn't burn out. It burns steady. You stop getting lost in the noise and instead move with direction and intention. The world is loud with demands, drama, and digital chaos. Social media thrives on emotional reaction, on stirring up urgency. But you don't have to play along. You can choose distance. You can choose silence. You don't owe anyone a response. Indifference allows you to remain centered amid the noise. It has the peace of knowing where you are headed and the power to not be moved by the chaos around you. But the greatest distraction isn't always external. It's often the noise within: fear, self-doubt, overthinking. These internal critics can be louder than any outside voice. Turning indifference inward means learning to silence those doubts. It's learning to say, "Not now. This doesn't serve me." That shift is powerful. It clears space for decisive action. Indifference at its core is emotional intelligence. It's mastery over your reactions. It's knowing when to lean in and when to step back, when to act and when to wait. You become intentional, focused, anchored. Mastering this mindset means becoming the captain of your life. You're steering with vision. You meet challenges without panic, without wasted energy. You channel your focus into solutions, not frustration. Indifference to distractions is what gives you the mental clarity to persist, to adapt, and to overcome without losing your peace. Perhaps most importantly, turning indifference into focus is how you protect your dreams. You stop seeking approval. You stop waiting for a consensus. You learn to trust your own vision even when no one else sees it. That trust requires a level of detachment from outside judgment that few are willing to develop. But it's necessary because greatness doesn't grow in crowds. It grows in solitude, in quiet conviction. When you stop seeking validation, you begin seeking results. And that shift changes everything. You stop performing for applause and start acting with purpose. Indifference, when mastered, becomes a powerful fuel for discipline. It keeps you consistent long after motivation fades. Turning indifference into focused intent is the secret weapon of those who accomplish great things. They don't waste energy on opinions or noise. They keep their vision clear, their steps steady, and their purpose sharp. This kind of focus doesn't need to be loud. It just moves, unshakable, unstoppable, and turns quiet effort into undeniable results. Choosing indifference in this way is an act of power. It's the courage to put peace ahead of chaos and your mission above every distraction. And once you master this, you become unbreakable. Not because you've stopped feeling, but because you've learned when to care and when to let go. That's how you walk through the world with clarity, strength, and purpose. That's how you win. There comes a point in every life when the need for approval reveals itself as a trap. A prison dressed up as belonging. Maybe you've spent years molding yourself to fit in, chasing nods of acceptance, hoping your worth would be confirmed by someone else. But eventually you realize true power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from self-respect. That is the moment you stop being a passenger in your own life and start driving your path forward, led by your own truth. Self-respect becomes your armor. It protects you from the sting of judgment and the emptiness of rejection. It is the quiet, unwavering truth that your value is not up for debate. It means refusing to shrink so others can be comfortable. Approval is fleeting, but self-respect is constant. It's a steady conviction that lives within you regardless of who's watching. When you operate from self-respect, you stop waiting for the crowd to cheer. You learn to cheer for yourself. You honor your boundaries. You stand by your principles even when it costs you popularity. This isn't arrogance. It's courage. The kind of strength it takes to look yourself in the eye and say, I am enough. Without that foundation, you will always be vulnerable to the addiction of approval, the habit that drains your peace and stalls your growth. Kindness is often confused with people-pleasing, but they are not the same. True kindness flows from self-respect. It allows you to give without losing yourself. But when kindness is driven by a need to be liked, it becomes sacrifice. Your energy, your authenticity, your truth, all traded for brief moments of validation. You feel it, don't you? Living this way comes at a cost. But when you choose self-respect, you no longer pay that price. You stop dimming your light to fit into someone else's world. Instead, you live in alignment with your values, even when it means walking alone. And in that solitude, you discover your power. Living for approval leads to fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of failing to please everyone. These fears keep you trapped in hesitation and silence, in self-doubt and shrinking. But self-respect breaks those chains. It gives you permission to say no without guilt and yes without apology. It gives you the strength to walk away from anything that doesn't align with your truth. And when you start living for yourself, fear loses its grip. Every day, the world will test your self-respect. You'll face judgment, criticism, and voices that try to pull you back into the chase for approval. But those voices only have power if you give it to them. Self-respect is your shield. It's the voice inside that says, I know who I am no matter what you say. When you root yourself in that kind of strength, negativity can't shake you. You become resilient. Not because life stops being hard, but because you stopped giving your worth away. You know it's true, right? This is how setbacks become steps. This is how criticism becomes fuel. And this is how you build a life not based on applause, but on truth, purpose, and inner conviction. That's what makes you unbreakable. That's what makes you free. Choosing self-respect over approval begins with embracing your imperfections. It means recognizing that worthiness isn't tied to perfection. Self-respect honors your full humanity. It sees your mistakes as teachers and your scars as stories of strength. When you accept yourself as you are, you stop apologizing for your existence. Your value no longer hinges on applause, but on your integrity, your growth, and your love for yourself. It's understanding that your time, your emotional energy, and your peace are not endless resources to be handed out without care. You stop overextending yourself just to meet others' expectations at the cost of your own well-being. This isn't selfish. It's necessary. Self-respect teaches you that your happiness is your responsibility, not a side effect of making others comfortable. This is the shift that sets you free to live authentically and sustainably. Choosing self-respect often means unlearning years of approval-seeking. It means breaking habits, facing fear, and sometimes standing alone. Yet, every time you choose your truth over external validation, you grow stronger. You begin to build a life anchored in authenticity. You stop letting others define your worth and start shaping your own identity with clarity, with courage, with peace. You become a beacon in a world that's starving for something real. And with that shift, something powerful happens. You reclaim your life. You stop living in the shadows of others' expectations and step fully into your own light. That's where real confidence is born. Not from validation, but from unshakable self-worth. When you commit to self-respect, everything begins to change. Not because the world softens, but because you strengthen, you rise. You begin to live boldly, love fiercely, and walk your path without apology. There's acquired strength in learning to act like you don't care. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity and peace. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth, chase attention, or perform for applause. True strength lives in the stillness of knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you no longer accept. You say no with the same strength you once used to say yes. You stop waiting for permission to protect your peace. And you no longer feel guilty for choosing it. In that silence, you find your voice. In that stillness, you reclaim your power. You discover that not every situation needs your energy. Not every challenge deserves your reaction, and not every opinion matters. You become unshakable. Not because nothing touches you, but because you no longer allow the noise to move you from your center. This is what it means to live with self-respect. This is what it means to finally be free.